watch the
Finn
live stream.
Jackson.
Hello, good to be back here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me submit. So I'll take my submission broadly as read. I'll just speak to two parts of it and then feel free to ask any questions either about the written bit or the bit I've spoken to. So firstly, there's a lot that I actually really like about the submission, particularly on the community board stuff. I'm strongly in support of Heathcote joining the Waihoro board. Yeah, it unifies Addington, Sydenham, the west face of the Port Hills, and most of the Opawahu River under one board area, which is obviously great for administration for those natural areas and also for those kind of less well engaged, a bit lower income, more disadvantaged areas of Addington and Sydenham. It also brings Opawa and Waltham back into the same ward as St Martin's, Sydenham, etc. I lived in St Martin's for a couple of years, went to school in Beckenham, walked my dog in Risingholme. I have family who live in Waltham. Post-quake, we would walk across to Opawa Road and get water from an open spring, and that was our only source of water for a little while. So, there's deep connections, and it's a really, really natural fit, I believe. I suggested two modifications, but I'll speak to one of them. That's just moving the boundary of the Waihoro ward down to the railway rather than having it run through the middle of Morehouse Ave. That's just because I think both sides of Morehouse have more in common with each other than, say, the south side would have with Opawa. And in London, I know that they've had problems where they've run boundaries of borough councils down the middle of main roads. It's essentially meant that no one really knows who's in charge, who runs the area, and it creates some reasonably big issues. Second point, I have a lot of sympathy with the Waihoro board's submission on wanting a ward covering Sydenham and Waltham and stuff like that. Obviously, it can't happen due to population size, but this is kind of why in my written submission I said that I'd like more citizens' engagement in drawing up the boundaries. Like one really good example I know of is the Waikato District Council put up an online map where people can go online, they can draw up what they'd like their community board or ward areas to look like, and it's subdivided into mesh blocks, so it all works out and all adds up. I'd also like to see briefings and workshops on the representation review minuted in line with the recommendations from the Ombudsman. That I will note that those were for all workshops and briefings. I know that the council's response was that they will be minuted where appropriate or where action points need to be taken. I would just say that it seems to me highly appropriate that we minute all workshops or briefings relating to representation arrangements, purely because it's fundamental to democracy. Finally, I'll just say I support STV. I'd like to see council look into that next term. Thank you.
Look, thanks very much. And until I read your submission, I actually didn't realise that that there hadn't been notes taken, because we do take notes of all of our briefings for our obligations under Lagoima, and because it's an appropriate way to refer back anyway. And it had probably been a bit hit and miss prior to the Ombudsman's report, so it was one of the findings and one of the outcomes of our responding to it. So I'm really sorry that was the case, because that's certainly not the case, and not the intention. And so I will just see whether the general manager can go back and look to see if we can recreate just a summary of the options that we kind of looked at in the lead up to this. And as I said to a previous submitter, this is not the end of the process. It is usually the case that there are appeals,
yep.
And then the Local Government Commission opens it up and does a substantial review of the decision that we've made. So it's only it's only a step along the way. Cool. So, Mike, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, just Finn. Just a question you've got in here around electing multi-member wards under FFP is described as the only electoral system worse than single-member FPP. What is your feeling then about community board members being elected under that system?
Yeah, I did actually consider that, and it's something I'm a little bit, I'm not entirely comfortable with that, but at the same time, subdividing a council ward for the purposes of electing two community board members, it seems like a lot of complication. Yeah. It's not perfect, but I'd say, I don't know.
Do you know who your ECAN councillors are?
Yes, Vicky Southworth and Phil Clearwater.
Do you think that electoral system, the multi-member within the wards, actually worked quite well?
I think it delivered some good results. I think it would deliver better results.
Under STV, yeah.
We can't introduce STV now, but we could make a recommendation for doing that in the next term, because the next term we can do a representation review, even though we're not required to do one, as we are required to do this one. Yep. We could do one if there was a willingness to do so. Tim.
Thank you, and great to see you again. Thank you very much for making the effort again. Great to see that you recognise Waltham, etc., and as being the only Kashmir elected member who's served those as those areas as an elected member. I totally agree with your stance about joining Heathcote with Spraden Kashmir. With your comment with regards to being kind of split between two, Melanie and I have worked very hard in Spraden Kashmir, and I don't believe our community sees a line on a map, those communities. Yep. So I think that would be the same result with whatever comes along.
Yep.
Okay? Cool. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for your time, Finn. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Felicity Richards.